All right, the Doom and the Tomb wild cards that are coming back to Standard have been officially announced. We already talked about them in pretty great detail in a previous video, but now I want to rank the ones I think are going to be the very best and the very worst.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right, I'm back home, back to normal. Now that I'm in the comfort of my own home, I want to talk a little more about these cards, specifically kind of sticking my neck out on the line saying the ones I think are going to be the most impactful. Now, you're not going to have to make any crafting decisions. You can go with the flow with these cards, but I still think it's fun to make predictions, make assessments, and maybe be right, but probably be wrong, and we'll get to come back and make fun of me in no time. That said, let's go ahead and talk about the cards here from the Doom and the Tomb event that I think will be the weakest, the least impactful, the worst of the cards. Starting out here at the fifth from the bottom, the fifth worst of the cards, I think will be Shaku the Collector. Now, of course, Shaku fits into an archetype of a deck, which not all the cards we're going to talk about do. It goes into a Burgle Rogue sort of shell, but the problem for Shaku is he's just too slow. You play him, nothing really happens. It takes another turn to start generating those cards, whereas most of the other Burgle Rogue cards are adding things to your hand immediately. Even Swashbuckler, which is being added with Shaku, does it much faster. And I think what that means is when you're like narrowing down your deck to 30 cards, you're probably going to have better alternatives than Shaku. You already have a lot of ways to generate outside cards, which aren't just your opponent's class, which is actually another downside, even for Swashbuckler compared to another class cards. So that's a challenge. But even then, like, you're going to play for the faster stuff. And you'll find out, like, well, okay, maybe I could add an extra Burgle card to my deck with Shaku, but maybe I'd rather have something else. Some just powerful tempo card, removal card, draw engine, whatever it is, you might want something instead of Shaku. So you're going to be forced to make all these decisions, and you'll realize that the opportunity cost of running Shaku is just a little bit too high. There are better things out there, and that means that even though he's okay, he's fitting, he's a totally fine card, I don't think he's going to be exciting enough or good enough to make the cut. Next up here at the fourth worst card of the event cards is Vol'jin. And you look at this card and you might be saying, oh, that doesn't seem like a bad card. And it's not. There's nothing wrong with Vol'jin. It's a totally fine card. If you got it off a random effect, you'd probably be pretty happy. Like, you'd do something cool. There's some combos, some plays, some things that happen with Vol'jin that are fun and powerful. The challenge for Vol'jin is a little bit different than Shaku. Shaku kind of feels bad to play, even though he fits an archetype. Vol'jin probably feels good to play in a lot of cases, but he doesn't fit what Priest does really well right now, which is combo Priest. They like to get fast early minions, buff their health, and go crazy. And although Vol'jin has health shenanigans, he doesn't really seem to synergize all that well with that deck. To me, he's a little bit too expensive. Swapping health can be problematic in that deck. They don't have a lot of ways to like kill things efficiently on their opponent's side of the board. They're not running like, Holy Smites and all those little flexible kind of ways. They don't maybe want to trade in their small minions, for instance. So Vol'jin just seems more awkward than helpful for the things that Priest does well. Even in like a Wall or Resurrect Priest, doesn't seem to fit very well, right? They're going to want to run like Sylvanas if they're going to run new cards, not Vol'jin. So a totally fine card, just contextually doesn't seem to match up very well with this class as we know Hearthstone today. Moving on to the number 3 spot here, I have Lock and Load, and I think the next 3 spots here of the weakest cards are going to be kind of meme cards. I don't know that they were intended to be good. They were probably just put back in for some fun. And certainly Lock and Load's a lot of fun. Generating random things is really cool because you never know what to expect. It changes your game plan live on the spot. You got to think on your feet. Unfortunately, you pay a 2-mana penalty to start doing that, which is a sacrifice. And beyond that, random hunter cards just aren't that good on average. You end up with a lot of like weird random minions and a bunch of weird random spells. And although, yes, you can add some spells for your Vol'jin later, like you could generate all kinds of extra stuff, the payoff's just not there. The price is a little bit too high. The randomness is far too significant and negative of an impact. So all in all, there's really no reason to run Lock and Load in the way we see Hunter today. It's fun, it's just not good. Speaking of fun, but just not good, we have Astral Communion, another, I think, meme card here for Druid instead this time. And yeah, dumping your hand is pretty nuts. Gaining 10 mana crystals is a really powerful effect, but I don't think Druid has the payoff right now to make that worth it. Although Kuhn is coming back as well, you might say, well, what if you top deck Kuhn? It's perfect, Regis. Well, of course, top decking a specific card's really tough. And I think playing just like a giant, big druid ramp style thing to support Astral Communion right now just doesn't work all that well. Other decks are doing things too well, or moving too well, playing too fast. This will just leave you dead 99% of the time, and that's why it won't be competitively viable. I'd love to be wrong. Somebody surprise me. Please, God, that sounds amazing. But I just don't see this one ever getting there. It like kind of barely teetered on the tier 4 range at one point in the past, but that was a totally different world of Hearthstone. That's not going to happen here. I think most important for this card is that it is now going to be added to things like Yog's Puzzle Box. So Yog's Puzzle Box is going to occasionally cast Astral Communion and discard people's hands, and they're going to freak out, right? Because that's pretty terrible. So fun that it exists in the game once again. It's just not going to be competitive. And then finally here, the weakest of all the meme cards here for Doom in the Tomb is, I think, Renounce Darkness. And again, one of the most fun cards ever in Hearthstone. Like, this card is ridiculously enjoyable to play, but it turns out replacing your hero power, which Warlock has one of the best hero powers, if not the best hero power in Hearthstone, and replacing cards that you hand selected for your deck with totally random stuff. Even when that stuff is discounted, it's totally random, and that means it's not very good. You can get a classic, the hero power doesn't suit you at all. You can get a bunch of bad basic and classic spells and random terrible minions. Like, you just don't want random class cards on average. There are so many bad ones in the pool that the good ones, the Tyrians for 7 mana, don't make up for all the Paladin secrets for 0 mana, right? There's just not enough payoff there. So it's going to lose you the game more than it ever really contributes to a win. It's unpredictable, unreliable, all the worst things you want in a great competitive Hearthstone card. So again, ridiculously, awesomely fun. I'm glad it's being added from a fun, enjoyable standpoint, but from a viability standpoint, it is the worst. Now that said, let's move on to the cards I think are going to be the best. And frankly, this is going to be kind of a boring list because it's mostly just the neutral legendaries that were OP in the past, and they're coming back, and they're probably going to be OP again. So I don't know that you'll learn much in the rest of this video. Maybe you'll be interested in seeing how I rank these. You'll probably know which ones are going to make the list, but maybe you'll be surprised where I put them. That said, Sylvanas is my 5th best card from the Doom in the Tomb event here. I think Sylvanas is great, but there are some awesome cards ahead of her. She's going to be playing in a handful of different things, Death Rattle Synergy decks, maybe some control decks that have like Reborn or copying shenanigans, like Reborn Paladin, for instance, could be cool. Also, just some Highlander decks will probably be able to run something like Sylvanas quite successfully as a powerful mid-range minion. A lot of those decks have those mid-range power band curves that are very good. Sylvanas will fit right in. So yeah, I think she's going to be played a ton. I think she's going to make big impacts. I don't think she will necessarily redefine a deck or bring a deck to life. That's why I put her a little bit lower here than some of these other cards. I don't think she'll be seen as much as some of these other cards either. So very, very good. Absolutely amazing. Just not quite as good as the next ones. That said, moving on to my number 4 spot here, I have the one non-neutral legendary on the list. It's Flamewaker for Mage, and the reason this one gets here is because I think Flamewaker was so good and remains powerful and wild to this day, really. Not as much today, perhaps, as a couple months ago, but still a very good card, very relevant card. And I think that'll happen again in standard format. I think a new Tempo Mage will come to life on the back of Flamewaker, and because it's going to have a deck-shifting meta impact, like it's going to create new decks, it's going to move the meta around it a little bit, Flamewaker deserves to be on this list. Now, it's not going to be seen as much as some of these just like universally good neutral legendaries, but since it's going to open up a whole new way to play the game and move everything around it, I think, you know what, Flamewaker is going to be one of the best cards. So, sure, it deserves a good spot on this list at number 4. Next up here at number 3, we have N'Zoth the Corruptor, another card that is absolutely going to open up some big decks and probably create like a different variation of a big deck. Maybe somebody like Priest or Paladin can use N'Zoth in a really big way, just like some Kartet Defenders alone make this a super powerful late game control style tool. And that might move a deck in a different direction, might move the meta around a little bit. So much like Flamewaker has that huge possibility to reshape everything. Beyond that, it's a neutral card, so it can go across multiple classes, and it's a game-winning play often when it hits the board. So N'Zoth is kind of a lot of the same things Flamewaker is as far as impact, but just scaled up across a wider variety of opportunities and bigger plays when it happens. So sure enough, N'Zoth earns the top 3 spot. So now moving on to the number 2 spot here, I have Ragnaros. And although I don't think Ragnaros is going to make a new deck, nobody's going to build a deck to support Ragnaros, I think Ragnaros could go in virtually every deck in Hearthstone. Maybe not every, but like a lot of them. It will be one of the most played cards in the entire game while it's in standard format, and it will probably be the most widely played of all of these cards except our number 1 spot, which is why Ragnaros takes the number 2 spot. So not as big of an impact in a lot of ways as N'Zoth or maybe even Flamewaker, but a much more consistent, widespread impact. It's going to be in like every Highlander list. It's going to make a ton of sense. Even off Evolve effects, it's going to be huge. So Ragnaros is going to be seen a lot, and I think that's why we have to recognize him here in the top 2. And then finally here we have Emperor Thoresen, which does like everything all the previous cards I've talked about so far and more, because he's clearly going to make some new decks. Some kind of OTK is going to open up because of Thoresen. It'll be like a high tier deck. Everything else will have to shuffle around to match that. Maybe add more health. Maybe play more control. Maybe play more aggro to race it down. Whatever it is, the meta is going to move around whatever Thoresen does. There's no doubt there. Beyond that, Thoresen can just be played in like every deck, much like Ragnaros. So Highlander decks are just going to toss him in because he's a solid mid-game minion that also discounts your entire hand, allowing you to do absurd stuff, cheating out your Zul'jin on turn 9. Like, that's going to be great for Hunter, right? Whichever class you go to, Thoresen's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good. Highlander Warrior will be like, hey, discounted Leroys and Bloodsworn Mercenaries? Let's go. That sounds great. Grom following this up on curve on turn 7. Yes, sir. Let's do it. And any deck I look at, any way I try to break it down, Thoresen rises to the top as the most obvious choice here for the most impactful, most powerful, probably most played card in the entire Doom in the Tomb event. So a pretty easy number 1 here for me. All right, folks, that's it for this video. Those are my rankings, but I want to hear your rankings. Which cards did I leave off either of these lists? How should the rankings have been changed? Share all those thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see some deck ideas I've got, well, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be doing some of that in the very near future, so stay tuned for those next videos, including just lots of playtesting of these cards in the near future too. It's going to be a fun event, that's for sure. So I hope to see you soon in the Doom in the Tomb. But until then, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.